I never thought my own flesh and blood would steal and destroy the one thing I worked 3 years to afford. My name is Mark, and I am a 28-year-old construction worker who saved every penny for a brand new Ford F-150. But my golden child brother Tyler thought he deserved it more than I did, and when our parents sided with him after he totaled my truck, I realized sometimes family loyalty has to work both ways. Before I tell you how my own family betrayed me, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever had a family member. Take advantage of your hard work and subscribe, because this story will show you exactly what happens when the underdog finally fights back. I have been swinging hammers and hauling lumber since I turned 18. While other kids my age were partying in college, I was up at 5:30 every morning working 10-hour days under the burning sun. My hands are permanently stained with dirt and calluses, but every blister represented a dollar closer to my dream. For 3 years, I lived like a monk. Ramen noodles for dinner. No movies, no dates, no nights out with the crew. Every paycheck went straight to my savings account except for rent and basic necessities. Meanwhile, my younger brother Tyler lived like a prince. Mom and Dad paid for his college tuition, bought him a car, covered his apartment rent, even gave him spending money for weekend trips. Tyler was always the smart one, the charming one, the one who could do no wrong in their eyes. When he decided to study business, they bragged to everyone about their future CEO son. When I chose construction, they just shrugged and said I was good with my hands. The day I finally walked onto that Ford dealership lot, I felt like I was floating. 2023 Ford F-150 Tremor in midnight blue, fully loaded with leather seats, premium sound system, and enough horsepower to pull anything I needed for work. The salesman could barely contain his excitement when I told him I was paying cash for most of it. $25,000 down, financing the rest. When I signed those papers, my hands were shaking with pride. That first drive home was pure magic. The engine rumbled like controlled thunder, the leather seats hugged me perfectly, and that new car smell filled my lungs like the sweetest perfume. I spent an hour just sitting in my driveway, running my hands over the steering wheel, adjusting the mirrors, programming the radio. This truck represented everything I had sacrificed for every early morning, every skipped meal, every lonely Friday night. Tyler showed up at my apartment that evening, supposedly to congratulate me, but I could see the jealousy burning in his eyes as he circled my truck like a predator. He asked about the price, the financing, the features, all while wearing that fake smile he used when he wanted something. Within minutes, he was hinting about borrowing it for job interviews, which we both knew were non-existent since he had never held a real job in his life. I told him absolutely not. This truck was my livelihood, my transportation to work, and I was still making payments. Plus, Tyler had a history of being careless with other people's property. He had crashed our cousin's bicycle when we were kids, broken our neighbor's lawnmower, and somehow managed to put a dent in Dad's car within a week of getting his license. Tyler did not take rejection well. His face turned red and he started yelling about how I thought I was better than everyone now that I had money. He stormed out, slamming my door so hard the frame rattled. But I stood my ground. This was my truck, bought with my sweat and sacrifice, and I was not about to let Tyler's reckless behavior destroy it. The next Sunday at family dinner, Tyler brought up the truck again. This time, he had backup. Mom immediately started with her usual lecture about family sharing and how brothers should help each other. Dad chimed in saying I was being selfish and should let Tyler use the truck occasionally for important things. They painted me as the bad guy for protecting my own property while Tyler sat there smirking like he had already won. I tried explaining my position calmly. The truck was essential for my work. I needed it reliable and undamaged. I was still making payments and could not afford repairs if something went wrong. But my words fell on deaf ears. Tyler played the victim perfectly, talking about how hard it was to find work without reliable transportation, how embarrassing it was to ask friends for rides to interviews. The pressure continued for weeks. Phone calls from Mom about being a better brother. Text messages from Dad about family responsibility. Tyler would show up at my job site pointing out my truck to coworkers and making jokes about his stingy older brother. But I held firm. Something deep inside told me that giving in would be a huge mistake. 3 weeks later, I was pulling a double shift at a downtown construction project. We were behind schedule, and the foreman offered overtime pay for anyone willing to work late. I jumped at the chance both for the extra money and to avoid another family dinner where Tyler would inevitably bring up my truck again. I parked at home that morning as usual, grabbed my lunch, and caught a ride with my supervisor, Jake. The work was brutal that day. We were pouring concrete in 90-degree heat, and everyone was exhausted by evening. When Jake dropped me off at my apartment complex at 11 p.m., I immediately noticed something wrong. My parking spot was empty. For a moment, I thought maybe I was confused. Maybe I had parked somewhere else. But no, I always parked in the same spot, and my midnight blue F-150 was definitely gone. Panic hit me like a freight train. I ran upstairs and tore through my apartment looking for my keys. They were gone too. I called the police first, then started calling Tyler. The phone rang and rang before going to voicemail. I left increasingly frantic messages, my voice cracking with desperation. Someone had stolen my truck, the thing I had worked 3 years to afford, and my brother was not answering his phone. Finally, at 11:45, Tyler picked up. I could hear loud music and laughing in the background. His voice was slurred with alcohol when he said, "Hey, big brother, what's up?" I asked him where he was, if he had seen anything suspicious around my apartment. He laughed and said he was at Rumor's Bar across town having a great time with some friends, and that I should stop being so paranoid about my precious truck. Something in his tone made my blood freeze. I asked him directly if he had taken my truck. There was a long pause, then Tyler's drunken laugh echoed through the phone. "Come on, Mark, it's just sitting there. I am showing Amanda what a real truck looks like. You should be thanking me for finally putting it to good use." I hung up and immediately called an Uber. The 20-minute ride to Rumor's Bar felt like 20 hours. My mind raced with possibilities, all of them bad. Tyler was drunk, my truck was powerful, and he had zero experience handling that much horsepower. By the time the Uber pulled into the bar's parking lot, I was shaking with rage and terror. I spotted my truck immediately. Tyler was behind the wheel engine, revving, doing donuts in the far corner of the parking lot. A crowd of college kids had gathered around filming with their phones while Tyler showed off. Even from a distance, I could see him grinning like a maniac, one hand on the wheel, the other hanging out the window. I started running toward the truck, screaming Tyler's name, but he could not hear me over the roaring engine and cheering crowd. He was attempting some kind of drift maneuver, spinning the rear wheels and sending gravel flying. The truck was sliding sideways when I saw the concrete barrier. Tyler saw it too, but too late. The impact was devastating. My beautiful midnight blue F-150 slammed front end first into the barrier with a sickening crunch of metal and glass. The airbags exploded, the windshield spider-webbed, and steam poured from the destroyed radiator. The crowd went silent except for someone screaming, "Oh shit," in the distance. Tyler stumbled out of the cab, laughing hysterically like this was all some hilarious joke. "It's just a scratch, bro," he shouted, swaying on his feet. "These trucks are tougher than they look." But I could see the truth. The entire front end was smashed beyond repair. Hood buckled headlights, shattered bumper hanging loose. 3 years of my life destroyed in 30 seconds of my brother's stupidity. The crowd dispersed quickly when they realized how serious the damage was. Someone had already called the police, and I could hear sirens approaching. Tyler's friend Amanda was crying, saying she never wanted him to do anything dangerous. Tyler himself seemed oblivious to the destruction, taking selfies with the crashed truck and posting them on social media with laughing emojis. When the police arrived, Tyler tried to claim I had given him permission to use the truck. He was so drunk he could barely stand straight, but he insisted we had some agreement about sharing vehicles. The officers separated us for individual statements. I showed them my registration insurance and the text messages I had sent Tyler throughout the evening. The evidence was clear. Tyler had taken my keys without permission and destroyed my property while intoxicating. But the worst part was still coming. My parents arrived within minutes of the police. Tyler had called them, playing the victim as usual. Mom immediately started crying, not about my destroyed truck, but about her baby boy potentially getting arrested. Dad took charge of the situation, talking to officers about boys being boys and accidents happening between brothers. When Mom saw me standing next to the wreckage, she actually had the audacity to say, "Oh, Mark, thank goodness you are okay. These things can be replaced, but family is forever." I stared at her in disbelief. My truck, my dream, my 3 years of sacrifice were crumpled metal and broken glass. and she was worried about Tyler facing consequences for his actions. Dad pulled me aside and suggested we handle this as a family matter. He offered to help with repairs if I would just tell the police this was a misunderstanding between brothers. The insurance company would cover most of it, he said, and we could all move past this unfortunate incident. Tyler was young, he had been drinking, mistakes happen. But looking at my destroyed truck, seeing Tyler laughing with his friends, while my dreams lay in ruins, something fundamental shifted inside me. This was not a mistake or an accident. This was my brother, stealing my property, destroying it through reckless behavior, and my parents enabling him to avoid responsibility just like they always had. The police finished their report and released Tyler to our parents with a promise to appear in court for reckless driving and drunk driving charges. But the theft charges, the destruction of property charges, those would only happen if I pressed them. My family spent the next hour in that parking lot begging me to let it go, to choose family over justice, to be the bigger person, and forgive Tyler's momentary lapse in judgment. As the tow truck hauled away the remains of my F-150, I realized I was completely alone. My own family had chosen Tyler's comfort over my devastation. They were willing to let him destroy my life's work without consequences, because holding him accountable might be uncomfortable for everyone involved. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment without a vehicle for the first time in 10 years. My coworkers, Jake and Marcus, picked me up for the job site, asking questions I was not ready to answer. The insurance adjuster called while I was mixing concrete. My truck was a total loss. Even though I owed $28,000, insurance would only pay $22,000 based on depreciation and deductibles. I was stuck with a $6,000 loss on a truck that no longer existed. My phone rang constantly. Mom calling to check on Tyler's emotional state. Dad offering to help with a down payment on a used car if I promised not to press charges. Tyler himself left a voicemail around noon, still sounding hungover, saying he was sorry things got out of hand, but insurance would cover everything, right? No big deal. But it was a big deal to me. $6,000 represented months of overtime work. More importantly, this was about respect, accountability, and the future of my relationship with my family. If Tyler faced no consequences for this, what would stop him from taking whatever he wanted from me next time? That evening, I started digging deeper into Tyler's social media accounts. What I found made my blood boil. He had posted multiple videos of himself destroying my truck, showing off for the camera while doing donuts and burnouts. The captions read things like, "Borrowing Big Brother's ride," and "Time to show this truck what it can really do." He was treating my property like his personal playground, documenting his destructive joy for the world to see. But the videos revealed something else. Tyler was not just reckless with my truck. In older posts, I found pictures of him on motorcycles that did not belong to him, driving cars I had never seen before, always with captions about borrowing rides from friends. I started reaching out to people in his social circle, asking casual questions about Tyler's transportation habits. What I discovered was disturbing. Tyler had a pattern of borrowing vehicles without explicit permission, then returning them damaged or not at all. Our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, told me Tyler had taken her son's motorcycle last year and crashed it into a tree. The family never pressed charges because Mom and Dad quietly paid for repairs and apologized profusely. A guy named Brad from Tyler's college said Tyler had borrowed his car for a weekend trip and returned it with a smashed side mirror and empty gas tank. Every incident followed the same pattern. Tyler would take what he wanted, cause damage through careless behavior, then rely on our parents to smooth things over with money and apologies. He had never faced real consequences for his actions because our family always protected him from accountability. I called my friend Derek, who worked as a paralegal at a local law firm. We had graduated high school together, and Derek had always been the responsible one in our group. He listened to my story with growing concern, taking notes as I described the theft, destruction, and my family's reaction. Derek's legal assessment was clear. Tyler had committed multiple felonies. Grand theft auto for taking my truck without permission. Destruction of property for the damage. Driving under the influence. If prosecuted to the full extent, Tyler could face 2 to 5 years in prison and up to $50,000 in restitution. The evidence was overwhelming. The police report, the social media videos, the witness statements from the bar. But Derek also warned me about the personal cost. Pressing charges against Tyler would likely destroy my relationship with our parents permanently. They would see me as the son who chose revenge over family. Holidays, birthdays, family gatherings would all become battlegrounds or cease to exist entirely. I needed to decide if justice was worth losing my family. I spent the next week gathering evidence. Insurance reports showing the total loss. Repair estimates from 3 different mechanics. Screenshots of Tyler's social media posts before he deleted them. Statements from witnesses at the bar. Phone records showing my desperate attempts to reach Tyler while he was destroying my truck. The more evidence I collected, the angrier I became. Not just at Tyler for his actions, but at my parents for enabling him, at myself for allowing this pattern to continue for so many years. Tyler was 25 years old, not some confused teenager. He made a deliberate choice to steal my property and destroy it, then showed no remorse when confronted with the consequences. My parents arranged a family dinner that Friday, ostensibly to discuss moving forward and healing our relationships. They picked Tyler's favorite restaurant, making his comfort the priority even in this situation. When I arrived, Tyler was already there, joking with the waitress and acting like nothing significant had happened. The conversation started with Mom asking how I was handling the insurance situation and whether I had found a replacement vehicle yet. Dad mentioned knowing someone who sold reliable used trucks at good prices. They were both working hard to normalize the situation, to treat Tyler's felonious behavior as a minor family disagreement that could be resolved over dinner and dessert. Tyler finally addressed me directly, saying he was sorry things got so out of hand that night. He claimed he only intended to drive around the block to show Amanda my truck, but one thing led to another, and before he knew it, he was having too much fun to stop. He said he never meant for any damage to occur, and he was sure insurance would handle everything anyway. I let him finish his rehearsed apology, then calmly pulled out my folder of evidence. Police reports, insurance documents, social media screenshots, witness statements, financial calculations showing my losses. I spread them across the table while my family watched in stunned silence. Then I told them about my decision. I was pressing full charges against Tyler for theft, destruction of property, and any other crimes the district attorney wanted to pursue. I had already spoken with a prosecutor who was eager to take the case, especially given Tyler's documented pattern of borrowing and damaging other people's property. Tyler's cocky demeanor evaporated instantly. "You would not dare destroy this family over a stupid truck," he stammered. But I could see the fear in his eyes as he processed the potential consequences. Prison time, felony conviction, permanent criminal record. All the things our parents had protected him from his entire life. Mom started crying immediately, begging me to reconsider, saying I was being vindictive and cruel. Dad got angry, accusing me of caring more about material possessions than family relationships. They presented me with an ultimatum: drop the charges and remain part of the family, or pursue justice and lose them forever. I looked at my parents, really looked at them, and saw people who had enabled Tyler's destructive behavior for 25 years. They had taught him that actions have no consequences, that family connections could erase any wrongdoing, that other people's property and feelings were less important than Tyler's immediate desires. "I choose justice," I told them quietly. "If that means losing a family that protects thieves and punishes victims, then so be it." I filed the police report the following Monday morning. The detective assigned to the case, Sergeant Rodriguez, reviewed my evidence with obvious satisfaction. Tyler's social media posts provided clear proof of intent and premeditation. The bar's security cameras captured the actual destruction. Multiple witnesses could testify about Tyler's intoxicated state and reckless behavior. Tyler was arrested at our parents' house on Wednesday afternoon. Mom called me crying, describing how humiliating it was to see her baby boy handcuffed and led away in front of the neighbors. She blamed me for destroying Tyler's future over something insurance should have covered anyway. Dad left a voicemail that was mostly angry, shouting about family loyalty and what a disappointment I had become. The legal process moved quickly. Tyler was charged with grand theft, auto destruction of property, and driving under the influence. His bail was set at $15,000, which our parents paid immediately. They also hired an expensive criminal defense attorney, spending what I later learned was most of Tyler's remaining college fund on legal fees. Tyler's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal that would avoid prison time, community service, probation, restitution payments. But the prosecutor was not interested in going easy. Tyler's social media evidence showed clear premeditation and a complete lack of remorse. The pattern of similar behavior with other victims demonstrated this was not an isolated incident, but part of an ongoing criminal lifestyle. Meanwhile, I was dealing with the practical consequences of having no vehicle. Jake and Marcus continued giving me rides to work, but I felt like a burden. I used my insurance payout and remaining savings to buy a reliable used Ford Ranger. Nothing fancy but functional for work and transportation. The estrangement from my family was initially devastating. No phone calls, no text messages, no invitations to Sunday dinners or holiday celebrations. I spent Thanksgiving alone in my apartment eating a frozen dinner and wondering if I had made the right choice. The silence was deafening after 28 years of constant family contact. But slowly, something unexpected happened. Without the constant drama of Tyler's crises and my parents' demands to fix or forgive them, I found peace I had never experienced. My friend Derek introduced me to his girlfriend, Sarah's brother Mike, who was starting a small renovation business. We began working together on weekends, taking on kitchen and bathroom projects that paid better than construction. The side business grew quickly. Word of mouth brought us more clients than we could handle. Mike handled the business side while I managed the actual construction. Within 6 months, we were booking projects 2 months in advance and earning more money than my regular job. I put the extra income toward a down payment on a brand new Ford F-250, even better than the truck Tyler had destroyed. Tyler's criminal case finally went to court 8 months after the arrest. Faced with overwhelming evidence and the possibility of 5 years in prison, he accepted a plea deal. 18 months probation, 100 hours of community service, $6,000 restitution to cover my losses and mandatory counseling for substance abuse and anger management. The restitution payments started immediately. $50 a month automatically deducted from Tyler's paycheck at the fast food job he was required to maintain as part of his probation. For the first time in his life, Tyler was experiencing the consequences of his actions without our parents' protection. 6 months into his probation, Tyler showed up at my job site. He looked different, thinner, and more serious. The cocky entitlement was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. He asked if we could talk, and I agreed to meet him for coffee after work. Tyler's apology was different this time. No excuses, no minimizing, no blame shifting. He acknowledged that he had stolen my truck, destroyed it through reckless behavior, and caused me significant financial and emotional harm. He said the counseling had helped him understand how his actions affected other people, something he claimed he had never considered before. More importantly, Tyler talked about his new job and the satisfaction he was finding in earning his own money. The work was hard and the pay was low, but for the first time in his life, he was supporting himself without our parents' help. He was learning the value of things when you have to work for them yourself. Our parents eventually reached out too about a year after the court case ended. Mom called first, saying she missed me and wanted to rebuild our relationship. The conversation was awkward and painful, full of long silences and careful words. But she acknowledged that protecting Tyler from consequences had not helped him grow into a responsible adult. Dad's apology came later and was harder for him to deliver. He admitted that treating Tyler and me differently had been unfair and damaging to both of us. He had always seen Tyler as needing protection while expecting me to be strong enough to handle anything. The criminal charges had forced him to confront Tyler's behavior patterns and his own role in enabling them. The family healing process was slow and sometimes frustrating. There were setbacks and arguments moments when old patterns tried to resurface. But gradually we began building healthier relationships based on mutual respect rather than one-sided protection and enabling. Tyler finished his probation successfully and continued working, eventually getting promoted to assistant manager at his restaurant. He started dating a woman named Jennifer, who had no patience for irresponsible behavior, which seemed to be exactly what he needed. When he made his final restitution payment 2 years later, he insisted on delivering the check personally and thanking me for holding him accountable. My renovation business with Mike continued growing until we both decided to leave our construction jobs and focus on it full time. We now employ 6 people and have a waiting list of clients. The success feels different from anything I experienced before, built on my own choices and efforts rather than someone else's expectations or limitations. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we love most. But love without accountability is not love at all, it is enabling. That destroyed truck taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. You cannot save someone who does not want to be saved, but you can save yourself by refusing to be their victim. Today, Tyler works construction too, having learned the value of hard work the hard way. He still makes his monthly payments to me, not because the court requires it anymore, but because he wants to demonstrate his commitment to making things right. When he looks at me now, I see respect instead of entitlement. And for the first time in years, we are building a relationship based on mutual accountability rather than one-sided sacrifice. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and standing up for yourself? How did you handle a situation where the people closest to you sided against you? Share your story in the comments below because I know many of you have faced similar, impossible choices. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family dysfunction and finding your own strength. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable destructive behavior. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that choosing justice over comfort is never easy, but it is often the path to real healing and growth.